morning and welcome to ATN Saturday. Today on ATN Saturday, we'll look at trending stories happening in Rivers State.
Let us have a debate. I will tell you, Sifobara, with all due respect, His Excellency is not a man of peace. I had never showed peace.
Because I will always speak from my viewpoint. God did not reinstate AMAEWHULE.
That the people have lost their seat and you have executed the law. Also went again and approached the Federal High Court.
To court orders and judgment, you discover that most of Rivers political players are into it.
Welcome back and thank you for staying with us. Joining me on Atlantic Saturday this morning is Nze Nze, a political analyst and a regular on Atlantic Television Network. Good morning, Nze, and welcome.
Good morning, Laurentia. Good morning, Rivers State. Good morning, Nigeria. There's no cause for alarm. Just feel cool. And God is in control. All
right. And also joining me is Emi Ferraga. Emi Ferraga is a political analyst and also a regular on Atlantic Television Network. Good morning, Emi, and welcome.
Yeah, good morning, Laurentia. Good morning, viewers, and good morning to my friend, Nze.
All right, and on to the story. Supreme Court on Friday affirmed the Rivers State House of Assembly, led by Martins AMAEWHULE, as the authentic and legally constituted lawmaking body in the state. A 5-member panel of justices led by Owani Abba Aji gave the order in a unanimous judgment read by Emmanuel Agim. The court also restrained the Central Bank of Nigeria and the Accountant General of the Federation from further releasing budgetary allocations to Rivers State until a valid Appropriation Act is passed lawfully by a lawfully constituted House of the Assembly. The Supreme Court held that by presenting a budget to a 4-man assembly, the governor was dealing with 12.5% of Rivers people and that 4 members cannot constitute a quorum. In a unanimous judgment on Friday, the panel ordered that Mr. AMAEWHULE and other 26 members of the assembly who were alleged to have defected should be allowed to resume legislative duties unhindered. The Supreme Court further ordered that all members of the House of Assembly are to resume normal legislative businesses without any hindrance to any members. Mr. Agim condemned the conduct of Governor Siminalayi Fubara, who he said resorted to acting unlawfully by pulling down the House of Assembly owing to his fear that there were moves to remove him from office. The court held that the executive arm of government has collapsed the legislative arm of government in Rivers State. As it is, there is no government in Rivers State. It said that it is a growing trend among politicians, especially the executive, those whose stay is being threatened in office, to rely on brigandage to stay in office. It also held that Governor Sim has serially subverted the Rivers State House of Assembly and all his excuses for that are red herring. The Apex Court held that the situation in Rivers State is dictatorship by Governor Fubara and has nothing to do with democracy. The Supreme Court further held that the crisis in Rivers State is a result of the flagrant disregard and disobedience to court orders. The Supreme Court ordered that Right Honorable Chike AMAEWHULE and 26 others should, as a matter of urgency, resume as members of Rivers State House of Assembly forthwith unhindered. The Supreme Court set aside the earlier judgment of the Court of Appeal, in which the Appellate Court held that the Federal High Court lacked jurisdiction on cases relating to funds belonging to Rivers State. The Supreme Court held that Governor Fubara acted in gross violation of the 1999 Constitution, which he swore to uphold, and that is worrisome for a governor to act in such a manner. The panel equally awarded a cost of 5 million naira against Governor Fubara and the government of Rivers State to be paid to the Rivers State House of Assembly and Right Honorable Martins AMAEWHULE. Let me start with you, Nze. What do you make of these developments in Rivers State?
Well, to a large extent, I think it is worrisome, being that the political crisis in Rivers State has prolonged so far till now, since 2023, and it has not been too well for the people of Rivers State. For any kingdom that fights against itself cannot stand. So you see the battle between the AMAEWHULE-led assembly and the Okojombo-led assembly, and the AMAEWHULE-led assembly, and the executive arm of the government. Now, looking at what happened yesterday at the Supreme Court, I want to believe, because I will always speak from my viewpoint, I want to believe that Supreme Court did not reinstate AMAEWHULE, because in the eyes of this particular court case, there was never a time that AMAEWHULE was not a member of State Assembly. There was never, in the eyes of this case, because if we can go back to the memory, you see that from the onset, I have said it that the case that was before Omotosho was a case instituted while AMAEWHULE was still a member of Rivers State House of Assembly. So for the statement now to read that Supreme Court reinstate, Supreme Court said that they should resume sitting, of which they may be by way of their interpretation of the law and all that, they have not been sitting, but that they should resume, it does not mean they reinstate them. So they have been there. In the eyes of this particular case, AMAEWHULE is still a member in the eyes of this case. But where we have our issue, where we have our challenge, where the crux lies, is in the defection that happened on 11th of December. This Supreme Court did not treat that matter. And that matter is still before a Federal High Court. So when that matter comes up and it is presented to Supreme Court, by the time it eventually gets to that point, I think Supreme Court should be able to look at it the way they look at this. So also coming to freezing the account of this, in fact, not freezing, but stopping the government institutions, the CBN and Account General from releasing funds to Rivers State. I think this is a crime to Rivers people by Supreme Court. Because if you stop, remember that Rivers State contribute immensely to the economy of this state, this nation, and you now stop their own allocation. What do you want to create? What do you want to create in the system? Okay, you want civil servants not to be paid. You want everything that the federal allocation that is being given to the state to halt. So if all those things halt, how do you think Rivers State will be? You know, sometimes I am being careful. I'm being careful to look at things from the angle that our so-called leaders and some government institutions handle their matter. In this case, Supreme Court has spoken, and that is the final arbiter in Nigeria. Yes, the governor will heed what the Supreme Court has said. Just, if you remember, I have been making this statement that no matter what comes out of the Supreme Court on this matter, that there are still other cases pending in court that will still wait to be heard at the long run by same Supreme Court. So to me, there is no cause for alarm. I advise Rivers people to calm down, pipe low. The governor is still in charge until we come to a point where some other things will take its shape. But the truth is this: man can only be man, while God will be God. All right, there is an extent to which man can uphold whatever tenet he is upholding, but God has the final say. So as it stands today, Governor Sim Fubara is still in charge in Rivers State. All right, very well.
Very quickly, I want to ask you a question. Can you put something on nothing? Can you put something on nothing? Now, do you think this judgment emanated from nothing? In everything you have said, you have not spoken about what gave rise to the Supreme Court, you know, stopping the allocations of being paid to Rivers State. Now, let me tell you one of the things that Supreme Court said I was expecting you would react to, when it said that the Supreme Court further held that the crisis in Rivers State is as a result of the flagrant disregard and disobedience to court orders by Governor Fubara.
Do you know why that has to come? I intentionally, because I know that we'll still have to take this bit by bit. Now, look at that. I told you that in the eyes of the Supreme Court over this case, they are following it from the litigation.
Has the governor been obeying court orders and judgments?
I'm coming. When we come to the issue of obedience to court orders and judgment, you discover that most of Rivers political players are into it. Most of Rivers political players are guilty of same. But while I said that in this very case, the Omotosho Justice Omotosho gave judgment, of which many of us discussed it, and the appeal court also gave judgment. And at a point, Abdul Malik gave judgment, Joyce Abdul Malik. And these judgments were always appealed. And at some point, I think that there was this consolidated appeal that came up that countered set aside some of the High Court judgments and all that, especially on the allocation of fund to River State. Now, these matters came up in such a manner that in the eyes of the Supreme Court, those judgments that some of us cried foul to were not adhered to. Not because the governor did not adhere to it, simply because it does not want, but he has appealed the case.
So and there was actually a disobedience to court judgments and court orders. That's what we want to establish.
If there is,
you're saying the governor did not adhere to it.
Yes.
Which means the governor,
the
governor on his part has not obeyed court judgments and court orders, as it were.
Which governor?
Correct?
Which governor in Nigeria is not guilty of this?
Very, very well.
And in Rivers political field,
if you say which governor in Nigeria is not guilty of this, does it mean that let me?
No, it is not lawful to do that. It is not lawful to do that.
Jose. I will speak in Igbo and I'll translate in English.
Okay.
Aroba for womenala, in the sense that when an abomination stays for long, it turns into a culture or a tradition.
A tradition.
So when you say all governors are guilty of this, does it mean that because lawlessness has never been challenged, it should continue as a tradition and it should be accepted to be right?
No, never.
So
never
when suddenly lawlessness is being challenged, it is seen as strange. We shouldn't even we question that.
No. I don't see this as
how is it okay for the governor to disobey laws?
Hold on. So it's not okay. I don't know who is making it to look okay.
How is it okay for the governor to disobey laws and court orders and judgments, but not okay for the courts to enforce the law, as it were, and interpret the Constitution according to the provisions?
Are you aware that, do you recall that we have discussed this matter here over and over again? But look at it from this angle. I said at some point that politicians are now making choice of which court order to obey, which was wrong. I told you that they are setting a precedence that our unborn generation will not like to go with. I have made that statement here. You see that APC in River State is doing it, PDP is doing it, governor is doing it, and other political gladiators are doing it. But thank God that the Supreme Court has come to say that it is a flagrant disobedience to court orders. But look at, in this case, the governor was looking at what happened that is not before the court as at the time.
Well, Nze, what it is what it is. Did the governor disobey laws? That has been established, not just by anybody, by the courts. And you have agreed to a large extent that the governor has been disobeying the law. The governor has been disobeying court orders, as it were.
But he was appealing them.
Which has given rise to the judgment. And when the Supreme Court was speaking, the Supreme Court actually is laying the blame of River State crisis at the doorstep of the governor in this judgment. And you're saying in the eyes of this judgment, the defection is not a case yet. I'll still get back to you on that. And I'll still get back to you on the concerns you have around the stoppage of locations to River State. But before we continue in that thought trend, I want to hear from Emmy what he has to say about this. Emmy, you have the floor.
Yes, I think in general overview, I'm glad that my friend is here and we are putting our whites. And for us, White signifies purity. Yes,
Interesting.
The purest of hearts. That is to say, all we should do with regard to the Nigeria state, we have to be with around the purity, truth, sincerity that will enable us to grow as a people and as a nation. On this garment of white, I would want to say that we operate a constitutional democracy where the law stipulates what is expected of individuals, authorities, and all persons living within the territory of Nigeria. And that is why Section 1, subsection 1 of the 1995 Constitution, which is our ground norm, stipulates the supremacy of the Constitution and its provisions over all authorities and persons within the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And it says further that if peradventure, as a citizen of the Federal Republic, you have one invested interest or law that is inconsistent with the provision of the law, by the reason of that inconsistency, that your law, that your interest, because we're null and void. It is believed that every individual must have our interest. But in driving our interest under the constitutional democracy, we have to subject that interest. Because if I'm allowed to pursue my interest the way I want to pursue it, like Thomas Hobbes always say that every action of a man is induced by some level of selfishness. I am selfish, you are selfish, then how can we live in harmonious way in a constitutional democracy? It's for us to submit to the rule of the law. And the constitution will not be the conscience of the state that regulates every action, every interest, for us to have tranquility in the state. But if you deviate from this, what you are calling for is anarchy. And in the state of anarchy, even you are not safe. So I wonder why everybody will continue to argue on the basis of that our constitution is automatic. When somebody defects, he has lost his seat. Which provision of the Nigerian constitution is self-executing? Which of the provision? That is why the law provides that if you are aggrieved, you are angry, or you are not satisfied with certain actions of any state actor, or even any individual, where you should go is to approach the court to seek a redress. You endorse your grievances, and the court will now look at the evidences presented before her and stand at the point. But in the case of Rivers State, we saw a situation where the governor, who became a governor by the reason of the Nigerian Constitution in section 1726, that gave him the power to become a governor, that made him to preside over the affairs of Rivers State, became the court, became the executive by himself, even became the law. We don't operate like that. You said, oh, by reason of defection. By reason of defection, these people have lost their seat automatically. And you went ahead to execute your interest based on your own definition of the law that is automatic. That you are relying on section 109, subsection 1, paragraph G. That, oh, he has defected, therefore they have lost their seat. The same you who is claiming that the people have lost their seat and you have executed the law also went again and approached the Federal High Court, seeking the Federal High Court not to do what? What are you asking the court not to do? You become the law. You have executed the law by taking an appropriation bill to a 3-man assembly.
4-man assembly. At that
4-man, yes, it was formerly 4 men. You were there, you gave them. That means you were the law, you have executed the law. And later you went to the court to do what? To seek the court to do what? Something you have executed. You see the contradiction. You see the confusion even in their midst. What are we even saying here? If you go to the ground norm, section 90, section 91, section 92 talks about the state assembly. Section 90 defines what the state assembly should be, and section 91 now talks about the required number of persons that are supposed to form a state assembly. It says it should not be less than 24 and not more than 40. So this is the legally recognized number of a state of assembly. But what do we do? Section 92 now provided how somebody can become a speaker of the house, which says he must be elected from among themselves. I had this discussion where a barrister, a lawyer, a practicing lawyer was arguing that it was a Rivers State High Court that empowered Edison here to become a speaker. And I said, no, the court have no role to play in election of a speaker. It is the Constitution recommend that the people who are elected should elect one from among themselves. Then how do you remove the speaker?